The idea for the name Eight Lands was one that wasn't there from the very beginning. We knew it was going to be Benrinnes Distillery for geographical reasons, obviously, but we wanted to create a contemporary brand. And we felt that Benrinnes as a name was too close to the whiskey brands, some of the heritage brands that this area is really well known for. So we wanted something a little bit more fresh, a bit more contemporary, and we went through a naming process with various consultants and internally as well. And the Eight Lands name was one that came up by complete chance when we were taking some people up the top of the Benrinnes Mountain, which sits behind us today, and pointed out the fact that there are 8 counties visible from the top of the mountain on a clear day. And somehow that made its way into the creative process, and it was the one idea we all loved. So we started with essentially a blank piece of paper for both products. One thing we knew is that everything we would put out here we would have to enjoy, and we thought initially about ourselves as a family, my stepdad and I in particular, what we enjoyed. Then we thought about what our friends would enjoy, and we almost saw these kind of concentric circles beyond that. We knew we had to focus on quality, but in terms of the actual flavour profiles, we started with gin knowing roughly we wanted to do a London dry. My stepdad started with a very traditional flavour palette on that. He was looking at some of the more old school brands. I was maybe coming from a more contemporary point of view, and I was more interested in some of the better quality craft products that are out there, and somehow we landed in the middle. So we did 15 recipes in batches of 5. So we did 5, honed that down based on feedback. Same again for the next 5, and then same again for the final 5 until we landed on what we thought was the right one. We did one final tweak to the ABV and ended up with the Eight Lands gin that we know today. And in each stage we tested it with key cocktail people from the on-trade in London. So they got to feedback, and we were bringing that into the picture very early on, as well as with friends and family. And the vodka followed exactly the same path. We were looking at what was good in the market to benchmark against, and we went through the same process, 5-5-5, and honed it down. And again, we did an ABV tweak on the end, down from the 44 we were at to the 42 we ended up at, to make a really smooth, tasty vodka, and we're delighted with what we've got. So with our gin, we knew we wanted to go for a London dry, purely because that's what we like as a family and it's the direction we wanted to go in. And we felt that also in the industry there's a lot of diversity now, but it doesn't hurt to get the basic things right, and for a core product that's where we wanted to start. On top of that, we knew we wanted to use at least some botanicals that grow naturally on the estate. And very early on we had a survey done of all the botanicals growing on the estate in any kind of abundance. And of those, during our flavour and recipe tests, we worked out that we were going to use 2. So we forage naturally growing cowberry, which is a bit like lingonberry, and also wood sorrel, which is a citric flavour, both of which go into our gin. They complement much more traditional flavours, many of which are not available around here. The fresh lime and fresh lemon peel that we put in there, the junipers which we source from further afield. All these other ingredients marry together to give a very juniper forward, strong citrus flavoured gin, but it has the tart sweetness of the cowberries. It's got a bit of spice coming through from the cardamom and coriander, and on the nose you can get a little bit of chamomile as well. And an important element of this is when we bring the botanicals into the process, when we're making the gin. So we have a very large vapour infusion basket which we can rack some of the more delicate botanicals in, as well as reinforce with some of the more robust ones that also go in for maceration. With the vodka we've done something quite different, and we knew that we were entering a market that was probably developing to bring in the character that we feel we've captured in our vodka. We didn't want to go for something that was tasteless, but we did want to keep a neutral, smooth spirit that was drinkable neat but could be mixed very easily. And we went through 15 recipe iterations before we chose this final recipe, which we're delighted with. So the interesting thing is the process. And rather than just using a neutral spirit, running it through our stills, then diluting it down, which would be the quickest and cheapest and easiest way to do things, we want to do something with a bit more honesty that would also give us a much, much better end product. So we use an organic wash made to a specific recipe of malted barley and malted wheat, And whilst it's still fermenting, we add in a specific strain of yeast and a crushed non-malted wheat grain, which really brings in this character that you can taste in the end product. We marry that together with neutral spirit and spring water to a certain proportion, and then we distill from that through our pot still and then up through both columns before diluting down eventually to tasting strength.